And now a word from today.
Yeah.
How's it going, everyone? This is the Anime Man.
And welcome back to another episode of...
Man, it has been a hot minute since I have said that name. Does anyone even remember what this show is about anymore? Because I don't. Considering the last one of these that I did was over a year ago, let me do a quick little refresher for you guys who either haven't heard of this show for a while or don't know what this show is. This is a show where, as the name suggests, we go over some WTF things about Japan, Japanese culture, Japanese media, and just other parts about Nippon that I find to be a little cuckoo caca. Now listen, there are predominantly two reasons as to why I haven't done a WTF Japan in a hot minute. One of which is that the past 3 or 4 episodes of this particular series have been deemed by YouTube to be inappropriate. Basically, YouTube doesn't like it at all and loves giving me the fat yellow dollar sign to make sure that I know it doesn't like it. And I guarantee with this particular video, Daddy YouTube is just revving up the belts, just can't wait to just smack this video down by the almighty power of the YouTube algorithm. Oh, and the second reason as to why I haven't done one of these is because I just genuinely forgot about this show, so there you go. And regardless of the fact that this video is probably not going to reach a whole bunch of you because of the YouTube algorithm, this is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about in a video for a very, very long time now. So, excuse me, Daddy YouTube, for I am about to commit a sin, which I will not be attending Sunday Mass for. Now, if there's one thing on the internet that has just exploded recently in notoriety and popularity, it is the happy-go-lucky, wonderful, exciting, yay world of true crime documentaries. And I don't know if this is just what I have been seeing and what I have personally experienced, but for some reason this particular topic is really popular amongst females. I swear every female I know in my personal life, online and offline, has just become infatuated with true crime documentaries and videos exploding on YouTube and now over on Netflix as well. And this certainly applies to the case of my significant other. She has just been absolutely craving true crime documentaries for a very long time now. Now, listen, I have sat down and watched some of these true crime documentaries, and I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of them are really goddamn cool. It's just really interesting, especially if you're into the whole psychology of things and just why and how these things just happen to be. Sometimes true life is really stranger than fiction. But put yourself in my shoes, if you will, for just a second, and imagine me waking up. It's a lovely morning here in Japan, the birds are chirping, the sun is shining, and over from the kitchen I can hear the lovely, beautiful sounds of a computer speaker blasting out something like,
Lacey Schmillington brutally murdered and desecrated 5 teenagers over the summer of 1994 with nothing but a bottle of lube. Watch as we cover this 7.5-hour confessional tape to unravel the mystery behind this overly lubricated crime against humanity.
Disclaimer, you can't actually kill 5 people with a bottle of lube. Unless you try really hard. Bottom line, there are some really strange, weird, and truly heinous true crime stories out there. And unsurprisingly, a lot of the more famous ones out there have been swallowed up and spat out by the world of multimedia. More specifically, true crime documentaries, but also in the case with fictional movies that are based off of the true crimes. Zodiac and Monster being just a few examples. But if you thought that Japan was this utopian society where the crime rate is low and everyone is well behaved, then you might be surprised. Because even in this supposed utopian society of Nippon land, there have been some truly heinous crimes that have been committed and documented extensively, and for lack of the better words, I would argue, have been put in the spotlight just a little too much. And that certainly applies to the case that we're going to be talking about today, simply known as the murder of Furuta Junko, or more colloquially known as the Concrete Girl. I'm sure for some of you true crime connoisseurs out there, that name may have rung a bell, but for those of you who don't know, it is truly an understatement to say that this particular case has had its fair share in the spotlight. So much so that not only have we had an exploitative film and many, many books written about it, but for the purpose of this video, 2 whole manga series. God help us all. Why? Now, as much as I would like to go over and cover the books and the exploitation film, also, f that noise. I'm already so much of a sissy that I can't handle gore films like Saw or Hostel, let alone a gore film, an exploitative gore film about a murder that really happened in Japan and honestly happened in a place that I used to live in. I'ma say no thanks to that one. let alone the fact that I have already had my sanity drained out of me by the fact that I have had to sit down and read the 2 manga series that we are going to be talking about later in this video. So excuse me for wanting to hold on to little sanity I have left for just a little longer. But before we jump into the 2 manga series in question, I feel it's important for all of us watching this video right now to start on equal grounds in terms of what exactly the Furuta Junko case is all about and what exactly type of subject matter we are going to be dealing with. But let's be real, I'm not exactly the type of person who is cut out to talk about true crime stories, so instead I'm going to get my lovely assistant, Detective Aki, to tell you guys just very briefly about what kind of case this Furuta Junko murder case is all about.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Detective Aki, and you may know me from my On the Case series with myself, Detective Aki, where I take infamous crimes from Japan and urban legends and explain them in great detail. Now, in this video for Joey's channel, we're talking about the Junko Furuta case. If you've never heard of it, it is one of the most grotesque, most brutal, and most infamous crimes in Japanese history. Now, the details of what happened to Junko Furuta are actually so explicit that it's best saved for someone that's actually ready to read it on Wikipedia. But I will briefly break down the case so that everyone's on the same page. Junko Furuta was a high school student that was liked by many of her peers. She had a part-time job, very high grades in school, and was expected to live a very successful future. But on November 25th, 1988, Junko Furuta was actually on her bike going back home. There were 4 teenage boys that spotted her and kicked her off her bike and fled the scene. They wanted to make it look like that they had just come to the scene and was offering to help her go back home. Unfortunately, this was the start of their plot to kidnap her and begin what is called the 44 Days of Hell. The 44 Days of Hell for Junko Furuta included torture, rape, and many other grotesque things that, again, I would suggest that you would just go read it online. When she was reported missing by her parents, the boys actually forced her to call her parents to tell them that she had run away and that she was safe with some friends. They even forced her to try and stop the police investigation looking for her. Now, there was a point of the investigation where the police did arrive at the boys' house where Junko Furuta was actually being kept, but the group insisted that they had no idea where she was, and the cops left. During the 44 Days of Hell, Junko was quite literally at the mercy of these 4 boys. Sometimes they would vent their anger by beating her, other times they would just beat her for the fun of it, and coming closer to the 44 Days of Hell, Junko Furuta eventually gave in to her wounds and died. Now, once the leader was notified by his brother that Junko had passed away, the 4 boys gathered together and dumped Junko's body into a barrel and filled it with concrete and hid it. Afterwards, another case was brought up that happened way before the kidnapping of Junko Furuta, and the police began their investigation by questioning the boys. They were paranoid that Junko was the girl that they were looking for. They revealed the body location, which surprised the police considering this isn't the person that they were looking for in the first place. And the other woman from the original case was actually never closed. Now, as far as the prosecution goes, unfortunately these 4 boys are still walking around today, because at the time of the Junko Furuta case, they were underage and many laws were protecting them. So they were released, but they were under a very heavy microscope under the government, and 3 out of 4 of the boys were arrested for other illegal activities once they turned 18. While they did serve some time, they were all eventually released and are still living and breathing today. In fact, in one of the cases regarding the illegal activities after Junko Furuta, one of them was actually boasting about what he had done to the girl. Another incident that happened was one of the boys' mother vandalized Junko's grave, blaming her for ruining her son's life. A funeral and memorial for Junko Furuta was taking place where all her high school classmates and her principal came, where she was gifted her high school diploma and buried with her school uniform. Her mother had a very severe mental breakdown in the court as the trial was going on, and there's no news about the father's whereabouts. Since then, the media has portrayed this case in exploitative films and manga.
Thanks, Detective Aki. So now that we're all on the same level of understanding, let's dive into the deep end. The first manga series we're going to be looking at is simply titled 17 or 17 years old. This manga is told from the perspective of not the victim, but rather one of the culprits named Hiroki. He's not really the ringleader, but rather one of the many members who was responsible for doing unspeakable things to Junko, or Sachiko as she's called in the story. I guess this author wanted to try and respect the privacy of the real-life Furuta Junko by naming her Sachiko instead, but it's weird because everyone who starts reading this manga will soon very quickly realize that this is obviously influenced and is based upon the Furuta Junko story, so like what's the point? What you'll immediately start to realize about 17 is not only the fact that the story is told from the perspective of one of the culprits, but rather the fact that the story itself, including its conclusion, completely differs from the actual case. In the manga, Sachiko has a twin sister called Miki, who is out to look for and save her twin sister. Miki also plays into the story by messing with the mentality of our main character, by looking exactly the same as Sachiko and being in the same class as our main character, thus screwing up his perception and morality against the terrible things he's doing towards her twin sister. One of the most interesting aspects of this manga, however, is how differently it plays out and portrays the real crime its story is based off of. For one, the real-life Furuta Junko didn't have a twin sister. In fact, it's not really known if she had any siblings at all. There are many points where our protagonist and many side characters that conduct in these heinous acts feel some sense of remorse or guilt towards their actions, when in reality, according to the many court case reports, the culprits that were later caught and prosecuted for the crimes of Furuta Junko's murder showed no signs of remorse or guilt, even while they were being convicted. And the biggest change of them all is how the story ends, with Sachiko actually escaping and surviving the torture, which, as we all now know, was definitely not the case for the real-life Furuta Junko. If I were to be blunt here, I wouldn't exactly say that I enjoyed reading 17. If anything, I actually kind of found this manga to be rather insulting. Now, the obvious answer as to why someone might find it insulting is because, well, it's based off probably one of the most heinous and disturbing crimes that have happened in modern-day Japan. And I don't think anybody can argue with you, especially if you actually go out and read the Wikipedia article that highlights and goes into details about all of the horrible things that Furuta Junko actually went through. Nobody can argue with you in saying that, yeah, this is absolutely freaking horrible, and the fact that someone has decided to make a manga about it is, in some aspects, rather messed up. But in my opinion, the biggest sin that this manga committed is the fact that the message that the story in this manga is trying to portray insults the actual events of the crime that it is based off of. The manga tries to humanize the main protagonist to be almost like a victim of his own destiny. The fact that he's doing all these horrible things to this poor innocent girl and expecting us as the readers to feel sorry for this kid when, let's be real, he can very easily opt out of all of this and save the poor girl from her horrible fate multiple times throughout the events of the story is rather insulting to the reader. Like, mate, I don't know if you know, this is all your fault. You decided to do this. You are willingly hurting and torturing this poor innocent girl just because you're trying to show to your boys that you have a pair of testicles. Or you're trying to prove a point to your boys and you think, oh, I'm a strong, tough man because I like torturing poor innocent schoolgirls? Miss me with that macho insecurity. Plus, I find it a little bit disrespectful that this author changed the outcome of the story from her dying in the worst way possible to escaping and living to tell the tale. Because to me, that just makes it seem like the author doesn't actually care about paying homage to the girl and her family, but rather just wants to romanticize and lighten the weight on a very heavy subject matter that should be remembered for the actual events. Because if you didn't know ahead of time that this story is based off a crime where the girl didn't survive and didn't get the retribution she deserved even after death, you'd think that this manga is just a fictional crime drama story, when really, it's an insane crime that should be remembered accurately so that history may never repeat itself again. Look, I'm not trying to come out onto camera and saying that this author is exploiting the crime for his creative endeavors or whatever. But if he really did care about the events of the actual crime that he is basing his story off of, the least he could have done is portray the story as close as possible to what actually happened so that us, the readers, can remember Furuta Junko, rather than her name being forgotten over time and muddied by this bastardized version of the true events. But alas, it seems that a different manga artist got that exact memo that I just mentioned, and decided, surprise surprise, to make a manga series, or rather a short story in a manga form, on the actual events that happen in the Furuta Junko case, scene for goddamn scene. But there's just one catch, because the mangaka in question goes by the name of Ujiga Waita, and if you know enough about your messed up manga like I do, you would know that he is one of the most infamous Guro manga artists of all time, and has created such wonderful, bubbly, fun little titles like Mai-chan's Daily Life. We can not get a W today. Now granted, unlike Junanasai, which was an entire multi-volume series, the Ujiga Waita version of the Furuta Junko case is only about a 30-page short story that is inside of this absolutely cursed anthology book, which I will definitely not be showing you the cover of, and I apologize in advance, Mudan, that you have to censor this, which means that you have to look at this, because, yeah, I didn't really want to send this to you either, to be honest with you. And if you would like to see the next couple of images, then I suggest going over to my Patreon, where you can see the uncensored version of this video, but please be warned, this is some true NSFL shit, so yeah, just tread lightly, if you will. But even though the Ujiga Waita version is a short story, again, only consisting of about 30 pages, if you've actually gone to read the Furuta Junko Wikipedia and have seen all of the horrible stuff that happens to her, then, yeah, basically every messed up thing you just read on the Wikipedia happens in the Ujiga Waita manga. And it is, scarring. But this is the part of the video where I might be seen from here on out as one of the weirdest dudes that is on the internet right now. Because as messed up as everything Ujiga Waita writes, and I would know since I have done multiple videos on his works in the past, his version of the Furuta Junko case was actually not as bad as I was expecting. For one, I can say with absolute certainty that Mai-chan's Daily Life is a million times worse than the Furuta Junko story that he wrote. And if I'm being even weirder, I would have to say that the Junanasai manga actually offended me more than the Gore manga equivalent of the same story. And this is the moment in the video where you may proceed to pause and type out, "Joey, you are the biggest freaking weirdo on the internet. Why am I even subscribed to you?" Comments down below. You're welcome. I swear, I was actually freaking out over myself as to how calm and collected I was after reading the Ujiga Waita version of the Furuta Junko case. I was like, why does this not make me want to gouge my goddamn eyes out like everything else he has written? Like, what is actually wrong with me? Have I become so dead on the inside now that this Gore manga doesn't even faze me anymore? Bit of an understatement to say that I really had to sit down and self-reflect after that realization. Now, please be advised, this is not to say that you should go out and read these two manga series if you are interested in the Furuta Junko case, or you have already known about the Furuta Junko case and are kind of curious to see what the world of multimedia has done to the case. Because I mean this in the utmost sincerity. Please don't waste your time on these. This is why you guys come to me, because I am the one who wastes your time for you all. I value your life. Use that time that I have created by reading these shitty manga for you to go out and read some fantastic manga. There is so much out there for you to enjoy, and these two manga series definitely don't fit into that criteria. Like, seriously, I wouldn't even recommend this manga to even the biggest connoisseurs of true crime documentaries, because there are so many better true crime manga out there to read and enjoy and spend your time on. Like, seriously, if you just want to go and look up the entirety of the Furuta Junko case, just go onto the Wikipedia page. And listen, here's the other thing. I didn't make this video to bash on these two authors for creating what is seemingly exploitative manga on a very heavy and saddening subject matter that should be taken in full seriousness. Because let's be real, I could make 100 videos of these saying, how dare these authors make so-and-so works that exploit so-and-so things, because the unfortunate true nature of humanity says that doesn't matter if there's a whole lot of criticism about exploitative works, people are still gonna make them, and people are still gonna make bank off of them. with every new drama, tragedy, and real-life event, there is always going to be someone there to come and lap it up and spit out some kind of multimedia around it. Whether that be in a retrospective, homage-filled spotlight on a very serious matter to get people to know the actual events, or whether it be someone who only romanticizes it and monetizes it for their own personal gain. But all I'm going to say is this. As someone who does pass their eyes through every creative medium, and I truly do mean I pass my eyes through every creative medium, regardless of how good or bad it may be. If you are going to make some kind of consumable, exploitative media, whether that be film, music, TV, or even manga and anime, just make it good. Make it compelling. Make it as close to the real thing as possible without twisting the facts. Because for a lot of people who aren't into true crime, and for a lot of people who can't be bothered to look into the real life details that happen on each case, these kinds of exploitative media are the only ways that they're ever going to know the existence of these real life crimes. And I think that's really important to understand, especially for someone like these two manga artists here, who are creating consumable media that is based on supposedly unconsumable, very difficult to swallow types of subject matter. Not only to preserve and respect the souls of those who had to go through these tragic and horrible events, but again, to also make sure that history never repeats itself. Yes, I totally understand that the pill may be very hard to swallow if told from a very unfiltered set of eyes, but at the same time, it is the most straightforward and best way for people to understand just how messed up this subject matter is and was. We had one Furuta Junko, and we certainly don't need another one. But if it is told from the eyes of one who is romanticizing these tragic events, and there have been, unfortunately, a lot of cases of people who love romanticizing very heavy subject matter like this, it's basically just gonna lead to us anxiously waiting on the next exploitative film based on another really tragic and horrible crime that is basically the same thing but with a different set of characters. Look, obviously it goes without saying, and let me do the thing that we do in every WTF Japan. What the fuck, Japan? Why anyone would willingly go and read manga series like the ones I've talked about in this video is honestly beyond my understanding. I mean, I do it because I'm making a video on it. I'm making content about it. I'm sharing it to you guys because I guarantee that 99.9% of you watching this video right now probably had no idea that these two manga series existed. And if I didn't have this YouTube channel, I probably wouldn't have wasted my time on these two manga series either. But alas, you guys just love to torture me and give me a mental lobotomy every time saying, "Hey Joey, read this messed up manga." Thanks for the suggestion, guys. Love you. But anyways, thanks for watching, and let me know down in the comments below what you think about anything I said in this video. If you are one of the few weirdos who decide to ignore my warnings and actually went to go read either one of the two mangas that I talked about, let me know what you personally thought about it. Also, let me know what you guys think about exploitative media based on true crime events. Like, what are your thoughts about it? Do you find it to be some kind of a problem, or are there more ethical and moral ways to go about it? I'd love to know all your thoughts and opinions about it, so make sure to leave it down in the comments below. Also, if you'd like to check out the uncensored version of this video, then make sure to follow your boy over on Patreon, patreon.com/theanimeman. Just for $5 a month, you can get access to all of the uncensored, unfiltered, director's cut versions of my videos, and it helps your boy as well. So please consider checking that out and supporting me if you want to. Also, if you love your true crime stuff, and I know you guys do by watching this video, then make sure to go check out my lovely girlfriend Akidira. She has a series over there called On the Case, where she goes over extensively different types of true crime stories and documentaries in Japan and all over the world, and people are loving it, and I don't know if you guys are watching it because I'm loving it as well. So please go check that out, and also make sure to go subscribe to her channel as well. All that links down in the description below. And also, because I can't stop saying also, if there are any more weird, strange, WTF things about Japan, Japanese culture, food, language, manga, anime, anything you want that has to do with J-Pans that you'd like to me to talk about in the next WTF Japan, then leave your suggestions by following your boy over on Twitter. Every one of these WTF Japan videos have come from suggestions from you guys over on the Twitter, so keep sending them in so that I may satiate the YouTube gods in content that gets me the belt. But anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, like and favorite if you enjoy, subscribe for more anime banter, and keep watching anime. Johnny!